We have before us Mr. Silva. Would you introduce yourself? Tell us your name and DOC number.
Ma'am, my name is William Oswald Silva III. My DOC number is 358513.
Okay, Mr. Silva, and counsel, would you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, ma'am. Kelsey Jenkins on behalf of William Silva. Can the board confirm whether they received the memorandum I submitted?
Yes.
We have. We did.
Thank you.
And we have here, well, joining us by Zoom is the Parole Project, Mr. Myers. We have here with us Madison Meyer, Andrea Meyer, Carrie Olam, Emerson Simmons, and Zeke Noah. And we'll call on those who've indicated they'd like to speak at the appropriate time. First, I'll read some identifying information, Mr. Silva, into the record, ask you to confirm it, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Marabella. Your case has been assigned to him. He'll take the lead on the interview. And after we've heard from all the speakers, we'll ask you if there's a statement you'd like to make before we turn it over to your attorney to close it out for us. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Silva, you're here today seeking a commutation of your sentence. You were sentenced in Orleans Parish in September 1995. You received a life sentence for a first-degree murder conviction. Mr. Silva, is that information correct?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
All right, would you answer Mr. Marabella, please?
Good morning, Mr. Silva. How are you? Can you hear me okay?
What's up, Con? Good morning.
Mr. Silva, how old are you, sir?
I'm 51 years old.
And how long have you been in prison on these charges?
A little over 29 years, sir.
By my calculations, you were approximately 21, 22 when this happened.
21 years old, yes, sir.
Let's talk a little bit about William Silva at 21 years old. How much education had you had back then?
I completed high school.
Were you working?
Yes, sir, I was.
What kind of work were you doing?
Between the New Orleans Fairgrounds, selling betting tickets, and or a place called New Orleans Seafood House, which I packaged seafood and shipped it off.
Where were you living?
At the time of the murder, between my great aunt's house, which was my grandfather's sister, and my girlfriend's house, back and forth.
And you have one child, is that correct?
Yes, sir, I do.
And her name is Bailey, I believe.
Yes, sir. Bailey.
And how old is she now?
She will be 30. She is 33.
Tell me a little bit about you back then. Tell me what was going on with you.
Basically, our life was in a complete disarray. Approximately 3 to 4 months before the murder had taken place, my mother had thrown me out the house for obvious reasons of behavior. Which
What was your behavior that caused your mother to kick you out of the house?
She saw a lot like my father's behavior, messing with a lot of females, had a lot of girlfriends. She disapproved because I had a daughter and I was still.
Let me stop you for a second. I read all of the stuff that your lawyer submitted about your background, and your father apparently was very abusive, drug addict and very abusive. And were you on drugs?
No, sir. I've never done a drug in my life.
Were you abusive to women?
No, sir.
How was it that your mother considered you to be like your father and kicked you out?
Just irresponsibility towards my daughter and her mother. You know, even though we were not married, I would choose to mess around with other females, and that reminded me a lot of him, as well as I would get into fights and confrontations with.
Were you on any sort of medication back then?
No, sir. No, sir.
Did you ever had any sort of a mental health evaluation or any sort of a diagnosis back then?
No, but my mother had wanted to give me some help, but I refused.
I noticed that when you were going to trial, apparently, you filed a motion to determine whether or not you, or at least your lawyer filed a motion to determine whether or not you were competent to proceed. Were there some issues with you and your ability to be able to communicate with your lawyer and tell him or her what happened?
I think there was at the time, but as far as that plea, that was basically an outreach to try to save my life at the moment, as well as some other suggestions by legal help.
Well, do you believe, as you sit here today, that you had some serious mental issues back when you were 21 or 22 years old?
Yes, sir. I had some issues, unresolved issues that I was not aware of.
Now let's talk about the crime itself.
Yes, sir.
Who is Miss Deborah? Who was Miss Deborah Courage to you? Did you know her?
Vaguely, she was my mother's next door neighbor.
Okay.
She lived next door to my mother.
So tell me what happened on August the 15th of 1993. Tell me what you were doing that day. Now you've indicated just a few moments ago, and you indicated all of your records, you didn't do drugs, you didn't drink alcohol to speak of. So what was going on with you that you, before all of this happened? Then I want you to walk me through everything that you did that day. Okay?
Prior to those days and weeks, me and my mother's relationship basically had all been falling apart. Every conversation that we would have, it ended up in a violent, cursing tone, kind of, and one of us would end up hanging up on the other. And arriving at home, basically what I saw and felt was, this is not my home. Even though I hadn't lived there for 3 months, my sister no longer had lived there. My father, he was no longer there. And it was just my mom's dwelling. And basically I saw my life as, where is it? There's nothing here. And I was very hurt and very angry for my mother trying to make me a man and held me accountable and responsible. And I just wasn't able to accept it.
So what did you do? Tell me what happened. Tell me what was going on in your head. Because I just want to tell you, I am very concerned about what happened on that particular day. So I want to see you be honest with me and kind of explain to me what was going on.
So I was angry, extremely angry and hurt at the way that my life has basically unfolded in front of me. I saw no future for myself, and just a lot of in the past feelings and anger had come upon me.
A lot of people in that situation, Mr. Silva, commit suicide. But you murdered a person that you hardly knew. So tell me what was going on with you and why you did what you did and what you did.
Arriving at home, I went there and I had a key to my mother's house to get some belongings. And it's the first time I've been back since I got kicked out of the house. So having those feelings, as I explained briefly, I went and got a pair of brass knuckles that I'd owned for a number of years.
What were you doing with brass knuckles?
I'd owned them for a number of years.
Okay. What did you do with them? What did you use those in the past?
I had fights with them before, in the street, so to speak, with other individuals. And my sister's room was right next door to mine, and she had some rubber gloves that she went to radiology school with, and I knew they were there. I'd used them before, of course, with various jobs within the house and around the house, and I grabbed a pair of rubber gloves.
And why did you grab the gloves and why did you grab the brass knuckles?
Because I was going to hurt somebody. I didn't exactly, even though I put the brass knuckles on and I put the rubber gloves on, I wanted to hurt somebody. At that point, anybody. I wanted to basically I did want to kill somebody. And at that moment, it was not Miss Deborah. It could have been anybody that approached, the first person that I saw.
That's kind of what really bothers me, because in your statement, you said you decided you were going to kill somebody. So tell me, try to help me explain how that process came about.
I was just so angry within, you know, I didn't see it.
Let me stop you for a second, and I want you to put yourself back in that situation. What if your mother or sister would have come home? Would you have killed them?
Quite possibly.
So what did you do? Tell me what you did after you got the rubber gloves and the brass knuckles.
I left the house, walked through the driveway, and just turned right and went next door. Don't remember if I saw a vehicle in the driveway or anything. I knocked on her door, and she answered the door.
She being Miss Koresh?
Yes, sir.
Then what happened?
She didn't ask anything that I remember. I told her some water had been leaking, and when she unlocked the screen door, I pushed my way in and began chasing her. She ran upstairs where I tackled her, and I hit her a few times in the head area, and there was blood everywhere. And I had left the body for a moment, don't know how long, and went and sat on her steps inside the house. Can't really say what was going through my mind at the moment, but then I returned to the body, and I saw that she was still breathing, and I attempted to strangle her with a belt that I was wearing, and I took a pillow off the bed that was upstairs, and I suffocated her.
How long did this process take?
Not long.
After you beat her with the brass knuckles, you were, I think you said you, in your statement, you were on the steps and thinking about what you did, and then that's when you went back to make sure she was dead. Why did you go back?
Because I didn't want to get caught if she was alive.
Then what did you do?
Before I left her body, I did look at the front side of her body. She was wearing a nightgown. I looked at her, and I left and went downstairs and went through some drawers and found and took some items.
What did you see?
A gun that I found in a drawer, some jewelry on the table, and there may be a couple other items that I had taken. But those are the gun and the watch and the ring are items that I clearly remember taking.
And then what did you do?
I left the house and went back home.
So you were certainly, you had decided you were going to kill somebody, didn't care who, you were just going to kill somebody. Then after you knew exactly what you were doing, and then you didn't get caught for how long?
9 months, sir.
And how did you get caught?
I had told a couple friends, but one in particular, he had told his mother, and I think she had told the police.
Why did you tell friends what you did? I mean, you didn't want to get caught, and it sounds to me, I'm going to be honest with you, it sounds to me from reading the police report, you were in a bar drinking with some friends and bragging about what you had done, and then they turned you in.
It was
Is that
never,
basically what happened?
I did tell friends at a bar, but it was never in the light of a bragging situation. Never. I was very ashamed. I was still very fearful. I think that actually I wanted to get caught in the weirdest type of way by telling them. I need it.
Now, you indicated that you had used those brass knuckles before. Had
Yes,
you
sir.
ever beaten anyone really bad with those brass knuckles?
I mean, no, sir. I mean, guys had bats and I had brass knuckles, in the street, basically in a street fight.
While you were, after you got arrested and before you went to trial, we talked earlier about your filing, or at least your lawyer filing a motion to determine your competency. And I think your plea initially was not guilty and not guilty by reason of insanity, wasn't it?
So
Did you have any sort of mental evaluations back then?
I believe I did both by the state and a doctor that had evaluated me as well. That was
And
provided.
did they determine any sort of a diagnosis?
I think both had various opinions.
And as a result of those evaluations, did you ever get any treatment?
No, sir.
Your doctor, I assumed, suggested you had some issues.
I believe so, yes, sir. And the state's doctor said that I did.
You did. But at no time did you ever try to get any sort of mental health treatment?
I mean, no social worker or psychiatrist. I believe maybe in Orleans Parish, I had seen someone, but there was nothing extensive. And I think from the side of my attorney or the doctor who was with me, they could not provide any help.
So from the time you got arrested until today, you haven't had any sort of extensive mental health evaluations or treatment or medication or anything like that?
No, sir. No, sir.
Now, you've taken a lot of programs. You've done a lot of very positive things while you've been in prison. I've read all of them. You've done a lot of work in faith-based programs. You've got a lot of letters from a lot of very important people suggesting all of the very good things that you've done. As you look back now on what happened, how do you explain it?
Well, I've done a lot of in-depth self-research, mostly dealing with my personality and coming to understand who I am. What I found to be is, number one, I am an introvert, a hardwired introvert. So being able to express myself or looking for help at that time was not easy for me to do. Another big part of my personality was impulsiveness. So the anger problem that I didn't recognize or denied having to myself or to anybody else, I was able to address it, and I just didn't have the skills or the desire to address it or to be helped. But in here, coming to understand who I am, basically what makes me tick, especially my anger, I have worked very hard on it, and it's basically a platform that I help others with in everyday situations.
Well, what have you learned in your anger management programs? I mean, generally speaking, and let me finish my question, I guess, with the statement. Generally speaking, when we think of anger management, we think of people that get into conflicts, and as a result of an immediate conflict, they do something without thinking. What you did was very well thought out. This lady that you attacked and killed had done you absolutely nothing. So tell me what your anger management or anger programs have taught you to be able to prevent something like that from happening in the future.
Particularly me, as I said, my feelings and my emotions, I recognize them. I'm able to take time to step back and analyze what I'm feeling, why I'm feeling it, and most of all, most importantly to me now, as I'm able to share with others openly what I'm feeling versus when I was 21 and years before that, that just was not me. And I basically trained myself to do those things and express how important it is to others in this anger management courses that I have facilitated in. It's just understanding what I'm dealing with at the time. And another big part of it is that the things that I'm in control of, I control. And it's far and few things that I do control. I realize that. I just, every day, my crime, the unjustified murder that I committed on Miss Deborah Koresh, I try to live it out by helping others. There's nothing that I can do to bring her life back and the things that I've stolen from her family and her friends. But my life does revolve around that moment. I'll make it a point.
Tell me what, you've taken several programs involving victim awareness. Tell me what you've learned about the family of Ms. Koresh and what they have gone through all this time.
Well, sir, there's no way that I could understand what they've ever felt or gone through, what I've stolen from their lives. Hearing the people in victims awareness speak, the mothers, that was a huge moment for me, because I'll share this with you. My family has loved me so much that they've never shared how much I've hurt. So I try to multiply that for Miss Deborah's family, and I can't do it.
Mr. Silva, do you think you need some sort of a mental health evaluation to determine? I mean, you've done a lot of personal work, it sounds like, on your own. I mean, you've taken classes and you've learned some things, and you really got into religion, and you've done a lot of things, and you've done a lot of things outwardly to help other people. I'm concerned about what you've done inwardly. I mean, clearly your record of service to other people and what you've done is really good. But you know, I'm a Catholic boy. I grew up in the Catholic school system, all of that. I know a lot of religious people who have emotional issues. They're wonderful people, but they've got emotional issues. And I don't see that you've had anything professionally to deal with that yet. You've done some things. So do you think you need something like that, a mental health evaluation to make sure whatever was ticking wrong inside you is not going to tick wrong again if you get out?
Most definitely. I would definitely like to have at minimum a social worker on a regular basis, just to talk to and deal with. You know, I do have those people in my family and friends that I am able to share with, but not on a professional level. But I would invite a social worker at minimum, or any other professional in the psychology department.
Have you requested that since you've been in prison? Have you talked to anyone about possibly getting someone that you could talk to about these things?
Not specifically dealing with my case, my anger, but I have spoken with a social worker on some anxiety issues recently that I had been dealing with, and it went well. It was very helpful and insightful. But as far as seeking specifically my crime, my anger problem, the classes that I had dealt with as a mentor, that therapy, getting the group moving in a direction, which is not easy. I find that being very helpful for me, probably more so than for the individuals that I had intended the material for. But I am open to any kind of professional help that would,
Gordon, what can you tell us about Mr. Silva?
Oh, yeah, Mr. Bearville, he's been doing well, like you pointed out. He's taken a lot of courses. He helps out as a mentor. Hasn't had any disciplinary issues in many years. As far as his mental health, goes, he's LOC 5H, so he hasn't been diagnosed with anything here from his mental health evaluation here. Again, I share your concerns on the crime and his reasoning for it. That's concerning. I hope that he can continue some kind of mental health treatment, deal with that. That's all I have.
Thank you, Gordon. That's all.
Ms. Raymond?
Mr. Silva, you do have a good history of disciplinary, but you did have a contraband write-up. What was that about?
is that in 1996, sir?
Right, it's a long time ago.
Yes, sir. I had first arrived in Angola, and I had a knee surgery, an ACL reconstruction. And they had given me some pain medication. One of the pill calls in this, I first arrived at a cell block, Tiger working cell block. And my leg was still in the immobilizer brace. And they passed out my medication to me around between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. I fell asleep with it in my hand. So happens is the shakedown crew appeared on the tier at Tiger Cell Block, and they found the medication for me.
Okay, so it's medication from the prison.
It's prescribed to me, yes, sir.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't alcohol or drug. Thank you.
Mr. Lee?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Silva, good morning.
Lord,
Mr. Silva, how old a person was Ms. Koresh?
she was 40 years old, sir.
40 years old, and
So-
you were 20, and you were 21, right?
Yes, sir.
And how many times had you been in her presence or you had met Ms. Koresh?
One time, sir.
So you met this person one time. This person was twice your age. And you knocked on her door. And you said her air conditioner was leaking.
Yes, sir. Water was leaking, yes, sir.
Yeah. And then you proceeded with the brass knuckles that you took before you decided to knock on her door and walk in, and she ran up the stairs, and you went up and you beat her to death.
Yes, sir.
Then why did you tell your friends in the bar that you went over to help your mother's next door neighbor? You saw some of her private parts, you got aroused, you had sex, and you went crazy and you beat her to death.
Yes, sir.
So why did you tell your friends you were bragging?
I would not call that bragging to them. I did a lot as a part of my character prior to coming to prison. I was a liar and I was a thief on many levels. And stealing her life has been the biggest theft that I'll ever commit.
So what you told your friends in the bar was a lie.
Pretty much so, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So basically, that was a lie. You beat the person to death. You said you didn't know exactly why. You just wanted to kill somebody. Why did you rob her of rings and watches and give it to some of your friends if you didn't exactly know what you were doing?
Right. As I stated a minute ago, I'd always been a thief from a young age. whether breaking into places or stealing people's property. And it was part of growing up. And though I grew up around some older friends, even at a young age, I still take responsibility for those actions. Those learned behaviors had carried over into bigger things. And basically my behavior was this, that I had fun at the cost of others' expenses. That was my mindset and my heart set as a young kid, as a teenager, and a young adult.
So if you ever released and you feel like killing somebody again, what are we gonna do?
Well, Mr. Roche, even though I'm on a TV screen and you may not be able to see the person that I am, I will never hurt another person again. It's a very unfortunate that I stole her life and when I turned her family's life upside down. But I hope you can at least set some truth that the man that I am today, it'll never happen. I think that the process that I've taken, the repentance that I've asked for from God, it's turned some serious light switches on in my life, in many dimensions of my life. And there's no turning back for me. There's no other options. And I do feel confident that I'm a giver of life and not a distributor of death and destruction any longer.
Mr. Silva, I'm the first one to acknowledge that you've done tremendous things while you're incarcerated, community service. You've visited cell blocks. You've done tremendous things. But my major concern this morning is that you have a problem. That problem has not been addressed. The same concerns Mr. Marabella has, the same concerns that Warden Forlorn had. You have not seen or received any professional help for the problem that you have. While you're incarcerated, you're under a controlled environment. And you do very well. And maybe you're one of those persons that will do very well in a controlled environment, such as incarceration. But I worry about what William Silva will do if and when he's ever released. Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. Mr. Silva, we do have opposition that's been expressed, as you can imagine. All members of the victim's family are strongly opposed to any favorable consideration for your release. But we do also have numerous letters of support from the Catholic community that are in the record. I don't see any other questions, so we'll hear from the folks who are here today in support. Could we first hear from Andrea Meyer?
First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the Koresh family and how our family is very sorry for their loss. We're constantly aware of that over the years. My name is Andre Meyer. I'm Billy's older sister. I'm beyond grateful that I have this opportunity to tell you a little bit about Billy. Billy, unfortunately, was born into a very volatile life filled with drugs and physical and verbal abuse from our dad. Even before he was born, while my mom was pregnant with him, she was pushed downstairs. The violence was often, some days worse than others. We went periodically without electricity, water, food, money, and all due to my dad's drug habits. We spent numerous times where I had to hide us both in a car, under a bed, or just outside, because I was the big sister and the protector. My brother struggled with school from the very beginning, but how could he not? He grew more and more frustrated throughout grammar school and high school. The more he would try to focus and do well, it just didn't happen. His behavior was becoming worse. He was withdrawn, frustrated. He didn't want to listen to anything that me or my mom had to tell him. Nearly 30 years ago, he committed a horrific crime, one I know that he is truly sorrowful for and lives it every day. He was sent to Louisiana State Penitentiary with a sentence of life with no parole. My mom and the rest of the family were in complete shock. Billy had always been very protective of women. Entering the prison system, I was concerned that his behavior would only get worse, but I was wrong. Over the years, almost from the beginning, I saw a traumatized young guy, grow into a man of real substance. He is focused, driven, and determined to change his life for the better. He's filled with love, compassion, and moral standards. He inspires people on the inside and outside of those walls. He wants to make a difference. He now chooses hope over convenience and others over himself. Throughout all of the different prisons that he's been in, not only has he found God, he's dedicated his life to him. He's a trustee and a Catholic minister that truly relishes mentoring his fellow inmates. He's prayed with the sick and dying. He's helped some to lose weight with exercise and learn to eat better for their health. He's found incredible father figures in the deacons and priests that have become his family. They guide him and believe in him. And he's found a peace that he's never known before. When my daughter Madison was born in 1999, it was Billy that I chose to be her godfather. I'm certain that some people had an issue with that, but I saw the growth and the change in him. There was no one else that could have done the job any better than him. They speak often to this day. He gives her advice, asks about her workday at the hospital, and prays with her. She's also here today to support him. I'm sorry, I'm a little shaky.
It's okay. Can you wrap it up for us, please?
In the event Billy is granted a commutation, he will definitely be supported financially and emotionally, and we will help with anything that he needs. Deacon Zeke and his wife have known Billy for over 20 years. They will give him a place for him to live and a job. These people have opened their hearts to him and they love him as much as he loves them. Since 2015, I've been battling stage 3 cancer, now stage 4. Billy has been one of my biggest supporters from day one. He's been a calm, soothing source of comfort for me. That's the person that he is today, an encourager. He's a compassionate and understanding little brother. And I know without a doubt that if this honorable committee chooses to allow Billy a second chance to be a productive member of society again, he will not let us down. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Simmons.
I'm here in support of William Silva and also in speaking as a proxy for County Nola, my business partner. She's the one that extended the opportunity for Billy, if released, to live with her and Zeke and to be employed by Happy. I've known Billy 25 years. And I went through Foundations for Ministry, 1, 2, and 3 with Billy. Should be. 1 and 2, Billy moved to another prison too. But part of the Foundations for Ministry was discussing wrongs that you had committed and discussing it inside a group of people, your peers, 2 people that were from outside that were facilitating, and this is in like 2001. So relatively soon after Billy got to prison. He said everything that he said today in those small groups. And I know that there are members of the board who have done the work inside the prisons and inside the system. I'm not making excuses for anybody, but the mental health programs that we have inside the prison, especially in Angola, for most of my stay there, was medication. You could get evaluated walking through the door, but you get medicated if you have an issue. And that's unfortunately the situation that it is. Billy was able to get treatment for his problems and come to terms and change his life through the religious program of Catholic Church inside Angola. And the instruction of Bill and Audrey Gibson, who went through all of the different classes with us. And me personally standing before you today. He's a wonderful person to know. He was an older brother to me in the prison. And I truly believe in my heart that if given an opportunity to rejoin society, that he won't let anyone down, that he'll continue to be the person that you see today, the growth that he's had. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Deacon Zeke.
Zeke Noah here. I met Billy about 20 years ago when I first went into prison. He was quiet, kind to himself. But over the years, they told me, when you go to prison, when I was in training for it, remember, these men are not your friends. So don't go in there thinking you're gonna make a friend. Well, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, when I met Billy, he became my friend. So for 20 years, we worked, almost 20 years, we worked together. Same office, he had an office, and I had an office, along with another inmate. Of course, we often prayed every morning together. And we became very close friends. I saw something in him that I see in other inmates too. He was compassionate, but he came to me, first of all, in shackles. Not the shackles that you see in Angola, but shackled by guilt and shame. And he had to deal with that. And in his own way, he did. I don't know what kind of programs did he go through to help him along. He was dancing in his spiritual life. But whatever he did, it worked. He was always ready to change his mind and his way of thinking if he thought that would be better for him. I have offered Billy a place to stay in my home and a job with my company, my wife's company. We feel like we can trust him. He's earned our trust. And I just think that he has done very well while he was in prison. And I agree with you, Judge Tony, that he needs more development. I don't know if he can get that in prison. We can help him get that. I'm sure he will go for it if we suggest it, and I'll hold his hand and take him and pick him up. We're standing ready to help him to deal with the outside world and to practice some of the changes that he's learned in prison. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you. And we do see, I don't know if the parole project is here, but they are in support of Mr. Silva. Mr. Silva, is there anything you'd like to say before we turn it over to Ms. Jenkins?
Yes, ma'am, there is.
Okay.
My actions in August 11th, 1993, to myself, first and foremost, are inexcusable and very shameful. And I need to let the victim's family know, her friends and her coworkers, that stealing her life and removing her from their lives, I'll never forget it. And even in that pain that I'll never know that they feel, in a very big way, that's what moves me to become a better human being. And,
Thank you.
at the same token, I'd like to apologize to my family, shattering their lives as well. And I just hope that that any and everyone that's listening can see me as a human being, that I'm not an animal. So, I've made some very serious mistakes, and I've paid for them, and I'll continue to pay for them, whether I'm in here or I'm free. And I've made that choice to let it live before my eyes and my heart. And I just want to thank the board for granting me this time to share with you my thoughts and my feelings. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Jenkins.
Hi, good morning. Thank you all for accommodating Mr. Silva's application for a clemency hearing. I did not help him prepare his application. He emailed it to me after he was granted a hearing and asked if I would help him on his case. And when I read the application, I threw it down and asked, what in the world could I possibly do with this? Because there is no explanation for his actions on that day, and he admits that fully and freely. I've spent countless hours with him trying to get to the root of why he did what he did, and the answers he provided to you today are the same answers he has provided to me in every single meeting that we've had. There's no explaining what was going on in his head that day. But it is very clear that from the moment he entered Angola, he took it upon himself to become a better person because he could not undo what had already been done. So as far as risk of reoffending, because we all share that concern, let's talk about the circumstances of his offense that will not reoccur. He will not ever be a 21-year-old with an undeveloped brain again. He has matured. He has completed education that he once thought impossible. He is now able to process his emotions instead of suppressing them and letting them build within him until they're out of control. This is one thing that has been a point of every conversation that we have had. And instead of refusing to accept help and guidance from the people who care about him, he now seeks it out willingly. He has called me concerned because his body was exhibiting signs of anxiousness that he did not know how to deal with. And so I gave him my advice, and he told me he had seen a social worker, which is an improvement from his behavior almost 30 years ago. Whenever I proffered the idea of seeing a therapist long-term if he is released, he wholeheartedly jumped on board. He doesn't know the differences between psychiatrists and social workers and psychologists, but as an officer of the court, I can assure you that if he is released, I will assist him with getting enrolled in Medicaid and getting a psychiatrist to see him at least once a week, if not more. He will be in St. Francisville, Louisiana, in the country, far away from the victims and the area of his crime. He will be under the guidance and oversight of two well-respected and very trustworthy individuals, Connie and Zeke Nola, who will also employ him and see that he gets to and from work and home every day. He is not intending to get his freedom so that he can go out and celebrate. He simply wants to be released so that he can begin returning his debt to society and one day is reestablish his relationship with his sister, his nieces, and his daughter. There's so much more that could be said about William Silva, but I will conclude by saying that he has taken advantage of absolutely every opportunity that has been available to him while in the Department of Corrections. He will continue to do so, but in terms of giving additional mental health assistance, that must be done on the outside. So for all of the reasons in the memo, in the application, and that you've heard today, we respectfully request that you vote in favor of granting his commutation. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I believe we're prepared to vote.
I'd like to move for executive session.
We have a motion for executive session by
Second.
Ms. Jackson, second by Mr. Roche. Is there any objection? All right, we will be in executive session to discuss confidential matters. We'll be back shortly. Okay, we are back in regular session and prepared to vote. Mr. Marabella will be voting first.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Silva, you've done a lot of good things while you've been in prison. You've got a lot of support from the people that have written letters on your behalf. You've helped a lot of people while you've been in prison. Those things are undeniable. I commend you for that. I have concerns. I have concerns about the facts of the case. We don't always get hung up on just the facts of the case because almost every case that we hear is a horrible set of circumstances. In my opinion, yours is a little different. I mean, this was a cold-blooded, premeditated type of a case that involved throughout your legal proceedings a lot of mental health discussions. And I'm very concerned about that. In spite of all of the things that you've done while you've been in prison, I'm concerned about safety to the community, and I'm concerned about the possibility of your doing this again, or something clicking again inside you. While you've been in prison, you have done some tremendous things. There's no question of that. And as a board, we often disagree on what we believe is the right thing to do. But our responsibility is to vote our conscience. And my conscience today tells me that I just don't think you're ready. I'm not ready to recommend to the governor that he sign a commutation unless I get some significant mental health evaluation to determine that this is not likely to happen again. You've done a lot of things on your own. I think you need more help. So my vote today would be to deny, in spite of the fact that you've done a lot of wonderful things.
Mr. Freeman,
I concur with Mr. Marabella.
Mrs. Jackson.
Mrs. Silva, I appreciate your absolute honesty today. That's always important to me in these hearings. And some of the things that we have concerns about, we probably wouldn't have known, but for the fact that you were so honest about what was going on with you during the time of crime. You can't change the facts of the case. They are what they are. The only thing that you could do is change yourself. And I think you've done a tremendous job doing that. And I think you do have insight into the things that were going on in your life that resulted in this crime. So my vote today would be to make a recommendation for pardon or commutation, I'm sorry, to 99 years.
Mr. Roche.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Silva, I have the same concerns as Mr. Marabella. I'm concerned about the life of mental health treatment over the last 29 years. I'm concerned whether or not you have public safety issues. It is my responsibility, if I remotely think that your release will be endanger society, I have an obligation to deny your request. until you get the necessary mental health evaluation and the extensive mental health care that I think you need, I cannot vote for you. So my vote is to deny.
All right, Mr. Silva, so you've received one favorable vote, 3 that were not favorable, so you know what the outcome of today's proceeding is, because you need 4 like votes. So today, the outcome is that your application for clemency has been denied. Good luck to you. Keep doing the good work that you're doing.
Thank you, Chairman.